Hey guys, hey, it's been a little while. We talked last summer. Just want to check in with you and find out how's everything going.
Things are going great, actually. We've got a lot going on, Kevin, and it's good to catch up as always. We've got a number of things in the hopper. Water on Demand is continuing to progress towards a NASDAQ listing. Ken, you want to give us a quick update on that?
Yeah, great to see you again, Kevin. We keep forgetting summer was like a month ago. So right, it's already, yeah. So we've handled all of the internal structures necessary to bring Water on Demand to the NASDAQ. You know, you built the company from within. But we think that one of the most vital components, we have all these acquisitions that we're talking about, building an entire network of water treatment technology companies, manufacturing, internalizing our supply chain, right? So in other words, we're actually going out, folks that have been supplying us, we have relationships with forever. We want to acquire them. We want to make them part of this, this powerhouse that can 15x the profitability of what was traditionally low margin, slow growth water companies, right?
Right.
So those acquisitions are proceeding at a really rapid pace, and we'll have more reports on those soon. I just got one from Bill Charneski. Now we have to bring in a powerhouse C-level executive team. So I met with Riggs. Riggs was at our office in Clearwater, and I met with him by Zoom, and we had a wonderful chat. These are very powerful individuals. One of them ran a multi-billion-dollar beverage company that when we released their information, but this is, he ran a $2 billion division of a world-renowned beverage brand, and our CFO candidate, who we should be announcing very shortly, is not your typical CPA, right? This guy, he gets it. He's like, acquisitions is where it's at. He loves buying companies. He's had tremendous experience doing it. And he's really excited to, sink his teeth into this stuff.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is good stuff going on. It's great to hear. And getting featured in magazines is always a tough thing. But we were fortunate. You got actually a Forbes article, and the article, the title was "What Can Be Done About Forever Chemicals in Drinking Water." And awesome job. Tell me more about that and how that came about.
Yeah. So we've got an awesome PR team working with us right now, and they really pulled the rabbit out of the hat out of this one. But no, honestly, it was really just the fact that PFAS are becoming a national conversation. These forever chemicals, right, or PFAS. And so many people, again, if we talked about this, every time I talk, I feel like we say these things, right? Not enough people know about water, not enough people care about water, but this is one thing that seems to be catching on. This is the one thing that people are starting to kind of, inch into. And as we were talking before we started recording here, right, it's like similar to Teflon in cookware, right? People are moving away from Teflon. Right? People are trying to get away from all of these types of chemicals, and they're leaching into the water from different agriculture manufacturing processes, and they can do some real harm to your body. They can mess with thyroids, they can mess with your hormones, they can mess with a lot of things. They're starting to link them to various long-term illnesses, and potentially even things that are more birth related, right? Mm-hmm. And more kind of birth related defects. So it's a serious issue, and it contaminates up to about 50% of the water.
Right.
So it's a much more prevalent issue than people think.
25 years ago, if I told you that, Kevin, because AJ was just a child back then. So if you and I had a conversation 25 years ago, and I said everyone was going to pay $2 and walk around with a water bottle, we'd be like, that's insane, right? We're now at a place where people are like, I'm not drinking tap water. They don't trust it.
Right.
So PFAS are... We're finding about all these, what they call environmental toxins, right? There's a epidemic of low testosterone among American men. Now that has a lot to do with food additives and stuff, but PFAS and contaminations in water play a very big role. And it's like almost like a great awakening about human health that's happening. You hear it in our politics today, but I think environmental toxins in our drinking water should be the front page news of every single, publication everywhere, 24 hours a day, and it's not. But I think that's starting to change now. But fortunately for us, we have the solution to help tackle this problem. And making it available, making it affordable, making it immediately accessible through our Water on Demand project is really how we globalize this, and that can change everything.
And so you asked how it came about. That's ultimately, why it is that we're really starting to get out there and people are starting to understand that we have the solution, and they invited Riggs on to come and talk more about that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And in fact, Riggs couldn't be here today. He's got some activities to take care of, but they quoted him, Rick, and here's the quote. Riggs Eckelberry, co-founder of water technology company OriginClear, said forever chemicals are now so widespread in tap water that more decentralized water treatment is needed to tackle the situation. Then it goes on to say industrial and agricultural users should install their own water treatment systems, which will help relieve the pressure on utility companies and their filtration facilities. So, yeah, that's what it's all about, is companies are having to deal with it themselves because the government isn't taking care of the water before it gets to their facility.
100%. Exactly. Now, more points of filtration, more point of use water treatment will not only help contain PFAS and they're, so it's treating water at the contamination source, but it's also going to work to filter out in existing water supplies that are being used, making water cleaner and safer for everybody. And the fact that Forbes mentions decentralized water. Well, we were talking about decentralized water before anybody had any idea what that meant. Right. I turn my tap, water comes out. What's the problem? We demonstrated how treating stuff at the point of pollution is critical. And now to get a widespread publication like Forbes saying, yeah, this is the way, it starts to validate, your early, you were the lone, Riggs often says, I was the lone voice in the wilderness, about decentralized water, and now everyone's talking about it. So yeah. we were right. We were just very, very early, but now the world is catching up, and that's super exciting.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Well, listen, I want to thank you both, AJ and Ken, for the work you're doing and for another stellar update. Let's keep plugging.
Hey, thanks for stopping by, Kevin. I'm going to be down in Florida next month. Maybe I'll come by and visit.
See you then. Take care.
Take it easy.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Good evening and welcome to Legends of Water. It is Thursday, September 19th, and this is episode 4 of the monthly. I've kept tabs on the total number of briefings. Of course, now it's not incrementing every week, it's incrementing every month, so it's going to slow way down. All right, Legends of Water, Water on Demand, Save the Planet, Recycle Water. And I wanted to introduce Mr. Tom Marchesello live on the East Coast. He's in Charlotte. And AJ and Ken are in Pittsburgh, and I am in Clearwater. And there is a ribbon cutting coming on the 8th of October. We announced it. There it is. That's the building by the side of the road. And it's going to, I think there'll be the mayor and various other people there. And there was a press release, which basically is 21,500 square feet. So about 10 times my condo. That's kind of how I compute it, right? Light manufacturing, and really to bring all these systems together and deliver to customers. On Tuesday, the 8th, from 2 to 4 p.m., I will planning to be there, along with the mayor of Sherman, Mark Stevens, the longtime PWT president, and Mike Jenkins, his partner in crime. And, Tom, I think it's time to ask you, how did this operation end up going from McKinney to Sherman? What up? What happened?
Sure. Hey, the good news is everybody's alive and we're all there right now and they're pretty happy. So, they honestly, the move was really good. The team did a wonderful job. I'm really thankful for everything that happened there. They were there for over 25 years in the McKinney location. So, that was a long time in one spot. So this is a big change, even though we're about 30 miles north. The new location in Sherman, I think, is exceptional. It is like a dream come true as far as going to the perfect small town Americana in North Dallas, where you can have a great quality of life. You can have a beautiful new facility. You have great trucking routes that, are less congested with traffic. And it just makes a world of difference for the guys who work there. and they are very, very pleased with the Sherman location. And it's really the future where Dallas is growing in that North Metro region. So it's cool. It's a very cool spot.
Now, there's a story about how the state of Texas helped us out. How did this come about?
Yes, they did. Yeah, so the backstory was that the state of Texas obviously continues to grow, and Dallas is a booming metro area. So the road highway that we were on was undergoing a huge expansion project where they're going to be moving the interstate really large and literally putting an on-ramp to a new superhighway exactly where our building was. And so we were being asked to leave.
Don't throw me in the briar patch.
Yeah. So I guess the eminent domain models where they purchase the land and then the Department of Transportation takes it all over. So in that model, we knew that it was coming. And so we played it really smartly where we qualified for the transition assistance where the state of Texas essentially pays us to move. They say, here you go, here's a bunch of money. It pays for all the movers and all the heavy equipment moving. And it was well over $150,000 worth of moving expenses, plus setting us up in the new facility with all the, electrical requirements, fire code stuff. So yeah, it was really good.
Oh, you've relocated us. It was a wonderful place and you threw us out and somehow we're going to make it in a new place.
But if you pay me enough, I will feel better about it.
I did. I felt so much better on it. I got all brand new stuff and nice electrical and all the things we needed. But the space was just superior. Like it really was a big improvement. It's a nice big open bay, environment. So it was such a win for us. It really was. And everybody in our team did a great job. So we were really thankful.
Yeah, I mean, the old location, we were even thinking, gosh, we're going to have to build another building because we were really popping out, right?
Yeah. We ran out of space. We had started actually looking over a year plus ago when we had the more growth. And then, through seeing what the situation was, this was better for us to stay one extra year in this location and then just change our operation locally before we made this transition. So it really was a smart play on our part. So good job.
Well, that's fantastic. And just in time for Progressive to, it's got, looks like there's some big projects coming across. Obviously, we can't mention them yet, but we just inked a very large contract with another power plant. So looks like we're on a roll with power plants. Apparently, an old customer of PWT's, Xcel Energy, maybe back in the picture. A lot of good stuff happening. And so PWT is starting to really get on the roll with these big power plant things and become known for doing that. And that's a major reason why it has to have its own site. Now, already, Modular Water is no longer trying to assemble things at PWT. That has been wrapped up, and now all the assembly is being done at the molding. The plastic
guys, yeah. Rotomolder.
Rotomolders, thank you very much. It was good. Somebody helped me out there. So as we covered last week with Dan Early, we think it's very sexy because it's, I think Tesla copied us, which is this, Tesla has this multi-assembly line thing called Unboxed, where it all comes together in one place to avoid the problem of too many people trying to fit in one car while it's going down the assembly line. Well, that's us. We're avoiding too many people being inside these water containers as they stream together to the final assembly point. And those assembly points are the 4 or 5 rotomolding partners that we have, and that we have, as per our company presentation, we plan to acquire them so that we have a supply chain efficiency. This is super exciting. Well, I wanted to jump in here on a great story that appeared with little fanfare last week, and that is Forbes Magazine. And there was an article about forever chemicals, which is becoming a big topic. And Jamie Heddlestone, who is UK-based, worked on this, and chemicals have tainted the water supply at almost 8,000 locations across the U.S., and PFAS pollution is in drinking water affecting more than 130 million Americans, which is a bit less than half of all Americans have a problem. So obviously, PFAS is a term that I hate because nobody knows what it means, but basically it's like things like Teflon, things that just don't break down. And EWG, Environmental Working Group, has an excellent database ewg.org/tapwater. So you can find out what's in your water and what kind of trouble you're in. This lady right here, she says drinking water filters reduce the exposure if they use a carbon filter or reverse osmosis. She's also saying that there's certain states that are worse than others. And also you want to protect the elderly and the young. So there are new rules, new standards for regulating 6 PFAS types, which need to be monitored by 2027. Now, here is a problem. It's an unfunded mandate. EPA has allocated a total of $5 billion for 150,000 water systems. So as usual, they are up a creek without a paddle, and there's nothing much they can do, which is why it's so important that the polluters get involved, right? The companies that are creating these PFAS. Oh, and we got quoted. Surprise, surprise. So now I made that very point. More decentralized water treatment is needed, and capital to help make it happen. And they can install their own system to relieve the pressure. Talking about some of the horrendous gap between needs and spending, which by 2043 will be over $2 trillion. In addition, you have to take precautions at home. Now, a more distributed model is modern, and it works far better. And that's what we're doing, is the modern stuff. So we're very proud of having gotten into Forbes and having gotten our message across. So let me just make sure. There we go. And I'm going to, I thought I would quickly cover how Water on Demand works. This is from a corporate presentation that is the back of the deck. And the back of the deck gets into how it works. So I'm going to cover that really fast here. So what is the structure? Well, it's structured like an oil well, because oil wells are the most scalable investor-funded energy model ever invented. And it now is being applied to water. And we can do the same as these master limited partnerships. And 67 MLPs have revenues of $300 billion, and they outperform the S&P 500. Regular investors can invest in, for example, the Alarion MLP ETF. Literally on your Schwab account, you can just go ahead and buy. Very, very easy. What do? They bundle properties, enabling direct public investment, and it's how investors can earn royalties and get a tax break as well. Now, there's no tax break in water. So what do you do about it? We simply make it up with equity in Water on Demand. It's a very, very excellent model. So we wouldn't eliminate big water. We would complement it. Pay-as-you-go program. We've talked a lot about this. Don't have to make that $1 million investment. And we keep title to the systems, which helps the investors. These bubbles look pretty similar, so I guess they're pretty much the same. But it's basically a water purchase agreement, like solar power purchase agreements. Very, very similar. And so you get a subscription model that is 20, 30 years long. And what we've learned from Wall Street in our investigations, AJ, Ken, and I were up in New York a couple of weeks ago. We learned that these PPAs are, you can set up financing for them, because if you have a good, reputable customer, creditworthy customer with a 20 or 30-year contract, you can offset your equipment borrowing with that contract, and it's relatively cheap money. There's an offering, which I won't spend much time on, but if you're interested in having a royalty type arrangement, guess what? Mr. Ken Berenger can talk to you, and that's what this is about. So, I'm very proud of the model because it is bearing up. Now, I'm about to play something that is actually kind of embarrassing because it talks about some of my earlier career stuff. The lessons I learned by being an idiot. And you will get this. That's the problem with podcasts. They encourage you to be honest. Dangerous thing. Let's listen to what this guy managed to get out of me. One of the best ways to build your network is to be in a company that blows up and scatters everybody to the entire industry. All of a sudden, there's people you know everywhere. They're at Microsoft, they're at Qualcomm, they're here, they're there. It's wonderful. And that's what happened to me, is I all of a sudden had a network. I would either take a job as a VP marketing or as a strategic consultant, back and forth. And so I went I was doing that kind of job, marketing exec type work. And eventually I became the president and COO of a company that was headed for the NASDAQ and did successfully get on the NASDAQ. So I was the number 2 of a company that had made its way to the NASDAQ. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm now, from here, there's only one step, and that's CEO. That's it. I had not, I've been a leader. I had been a ship captain, right? And faced, danger and possible loss of the ship and all these crazy things. So I knew something about leadership. And so I was pretty comfortable with becoming a CEO. It's not a job you can train for. You just have to kind of step into those shoes. Fortunately, the fund that I was working with, they were pretty good at guiding me. And then I learned the value of not giving up. Because remember, in the 80s, I had given up with the company I built there. In the 2000s, I had a public company and a lot of shareholders, and I could not give up. I couldn't walk away. And this was interesting because the space we started with became irrelevant. The company that we started was in a space called algae for biofuels, which is fantastic. It's a wonderful idea. We should be running our cars on algae-based biofuels right now, right? Only problem is that to get anywhere at the time, the price of crude had to be around over $100 a barrel, which was true at the time I started the company. It's $120 a barrel. We forget that in 2007, crude was 120, and today it's considered high. It's at 80. So, which is $80 considerably depreciated from that 120. So, what happened, of course, was the fracking revolution, which crashed the price of crude below 50. And at that point, we realized that we were not going to be doing algae for biofuels. And that's when we managed to pivot the company into a space which I had no intention of getting into, which was the water industry. Why? Because the technology we had for pulling the algae out of the water, remember it's microscopic, it's hard to get out of the water, also worked for getting sewage out of the water. And so we basically transposed the technology over into the water space and started being an innovator in the industrial water space. Well, I had a few lessons to learn about the water industry because they are not very happy about innovation. And so, in fact, I learned eventually that they take 12 to 15 years to adopt a new technology. And I just wasn't interested in that kind of timeline. So we went from a technology focused, having a great technology and trying to license it, which got nowhere for a long time. And we moved into more of a business model, which is what we've adopted. And it started to work. It started to work really well. And so now today, here's what happened, Jace, is that there is something called decentralized water, meaning that it's the philosophy that the people who produce the dirty water should treat their own dirty water and not send it to the city, because the cities are overwhelmed. They can't take it. They're completely drowning. And so the best solution is on-site treatment. You pollute, you clean it up. And what's great about that is that the producers like it because they can then recycle. They can. There's all kinds of benefits for them if you enable it. Well, what do you need to enable it? First of all, you've got to have water systems that are compact enough to fit in much smaller locations than a freaking utility, right? So number one. And number two, you need a financial system so they don't have to pay a bunch of capital up front. And that's what we came up with. We came up with water as a service. And now we have customers who are, we have a lot of run rate and successes with customers from both small and large that do their own water treatment, power plants, breweries, you name it, housing developments. And now we're beginning to do this capital thing. And that's the interesting part of the business because it's kind of like the oil well investment, right? People invest in oil wells and they get royalties. Well, it's very similar here. We get investors to invest in these water systems and they get returns. And the client doesn't have to come up with a bunch of capital. He just pays by the gallon on the meter. So that has become something really exciting. We call it water on demand. And we created it. built it up so it had a valuation, and we got it in a marriage with a blank check company, and it's going on the NASDAQ. Now, what's fun about this is that my company, OriginClear, which birthed this thing and it's going to the NASDAQ, we're now going to do more of these. We're now an incubator. So we're creating like a Y Combinator for water. That starts to be fun, right? So yeah, we're gonna throw water on demand on the NASDAQ, and it's gonna have a valuation, so forth and so on. That's great. But we got more coming. And let me tell you something. If you're good at fundraising, you got so many companies beating a path to your door. That's what we are.
How old were you when you were number 2 at that first company that went and hit the NASDAQ?
Well, I had just turned 50 because so 2002, I was 50, and I was at Cyber Defender in 2004, 2005, into 2006. So I was, 52, 53, something like that.
So you're early to mid 50s when you take your first CEO gig, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And here we are, call it 15 to 20 years later. You're still doing it when most people your age have called it a career. Talk us through the mindset of maybe doing what you're doing instead of closing up shop.
Well, first of all, I'm a pretty tenacious guy, and I believe in, learning from your mistakes. But if it goes so far as to get you in really deep that you end up declaring bankruptcy, that's a form of suicide. It takes a long time to recover. Psychically, I was that business failure in the 80s. I did a bunch of stuff after that, including a year in film in LA, a bunch of stuff because I just didn't have my bearings. So like, my God, you end up, it's not in our DNA to fail, right? If we're honest, high integrity people, we want to make good, not just by ourselves, but by the people we serve, right? I'm proud that at least I met payroll every 2 weeks for the entirety of the time I had that company. But I did stiff AT&T. There were some losers in that thing. It's better to figure it out and make it work than to give up. I know that without a shadow of a doubt.
That's awesome. Well, where do you go from here? Obviously retirement is not anywhere near the picture. Do you think you're going to live 20, 30, 40 more years and continue to work that long too? Or
okay, well, first of all, I do intend to have a good 20-year run. Okay. Beyond that, who knows? I think 92 is a respectable age to stop working, but who knows? But there's people out there, Soros and what's his name, the owner of Fox. These guys are old. They hang out. They still work, right? Now, they have help. I'm not going to be a CEO forever. I'll be a chairman, right? Obviously, because I have other interests. My wife's school. What I do with my main function, aside from helping my wife with the legal and finance side of this nonprofit school, is I'm the guy who teaches these kids. We do a lot of school trips skiing. I'm crazy about skiing, and I teach them skiing. And I take them in the trees, deep in the trees, and they become fearless. So I have to stay that fit, right? And I'm decently fit, I can do that. But most importantly, I think, is that you haven't lost your speed of action, right? You can get things done, you can keep going. I think that's key. It's very hard to keep going when things are not going well. But when things start to go well, hey, I get up in the morning, I'm like, let's get it on, right? It wasn't always that way. During the time I was trying to figure out this business, we had investors who really, really believed in us. Amazing investors. But it was hard because where was the light at the end of the tunnel? But now they see it, and now it's happening. So where do we go from here? As I was saying, OriginClear, which is the longtime penny stock company. What is our superpower? It's what we did all along, which is retail fundraising from accredited investors. We know how to do that. And so we're going to keep doing that for future companies. Now, these future companies have to have 3 things that work for them. Number 1, it has to be a hot idea. It has to be a great thing. Has to be really cool, and with an IP moat. All right, you got to be some differentiation. Number 2, organizationally, they have to be strong, and if they're not, we have to rehab them. because I'm not going to raise money for a company that's going to fail. Those companies that we're going to help launch have to have decent, what we call OD, organizational development, right? They have to have good structure, a good team. And if the team is somehow lacking, maybe they have a bad CFO, whatever, fix that, fix their processes, get whatever they need. I mean, we start with an assessment and go from there. And then the third thing is what's their path to financial success, which these days, in my opinion, the best way to go is to crowdfund your way straight to the NASDAQ. That is the way to go. And we know how to do that. So we want to take these companies and, put them through the assembly line, make sure that they have a unique selling proposition, that they're worth raising money for, make sure that structurally they're good, they're not going to fall apart, and that they're going to perform, and then get them on a path to where they're going to get their exit. And we're going to take a piece of every one of these. That's going to mean, some equity positions. We have over half of the company that we're taking onto the NASDAQ. Well, that means we have a chunk of a NASDAQ company. And we keep doing that a few more times. It's going to add up. And of course, I haven't even mentioned the shares I have in the penny stock company because they're far from liquid, but they will eventually be. So I like the idea that we're getting our creds by successfully taking a company onto the NASDAQ at long last and then doing more of the same. And the more you do it, it's kind of like a snowball, right? It's like everybody thinks Y Combinator is wonderful, but Y Combinator, they got their creds doing things like Airbnb that weren't obvious at first, right? Oh my God, Airbnb was like a lame idea, but they believed in it and they made a small investment in it, I think $20,000, which I think we paid incredibly. And that's the kind of thing that we want to do in water and water-related industries. So we could go into indirect use of water, like agriculture, but we don't think we want to go too far away from water at the moment. But the important thing is we think we're very good at managing a fundraising pipeline with retail investors. And here's the thing, Jace, is that ordinary people have a very hard time finding ways to invest their money. Ashton Kutcher was an early investor along Sequoia with an Airbnb, and he made something like 350,000% on his money. Well, we're not Ashton Kutcher, so we don't get access to these deals. We're lucky if we were smart enough to have gotten Bitcoin and held onto it, despite everybody telling us not to. But aside from that, it's very hard to make real money. We want to give investors that kind of access. So we're very much about enabling both accredited and unaccredited investors an opportunity to have something that's kind of cool. And that's going to go somewhere early enough that they get some appreciation.
That's awesome, Riggs. Quite the journey and commendable for what you're doing now with water and the water industry. So, Riggs, any last pieces of advice for somebody who's just starting out on their journey?
Well, I think I said earlier on that it's very important to apprentice in what you want to do, and I think that's very true. Where I have failed is because I just kind of jumped in and like, woohoo, right? For example, when I became a product manager, I was given a proper apprenticeship and introduction to it, and I became a very good product manager. So that's number one, is get the basics of whatever you're doing, and you'll do well. But number two, once having got that, don't be afraid to take risks, especially these days. As you have to make a lot of money to get anywhere in this hyperinflated economy. It's going to get worse. So you've got to make a lot of money, which means you can't do it without risk. It's impossible. So be willing to take the risks, but then learn fast and apply the learning lessons. Don't go down a path too long. When I was at sea, we knew that if we went off course for too long, then all that time off course would have to be made up just to get back on course. So you have this long, long makeup period. Don't prolong that. The man I studied under, L. Ron Hubbard, said the heart of review is humility, meaning when you review how you've done, be humble. Maybe I wasn't that good at whatever I did. Don't be like, oh, God damn it, I'm really good at this. No, because you're just asserting and you'll go off course more and more and more. So be willing to change. Having taken that risk, remember that you probably didn't have it completely right, and be willing to adjust your path rapidly and early. I trademarked that as mistake-based marketing in the early 2000s, and I believe in it very strongly.
Awesome. That's Riggs. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Jay, such a pleasure. Thank you very much. It was very entertaining as well. Probably I should have buried that interview, but one thing that I was thinking about while I was playing was that, AJ, you're a product manager too. And what I described about the life of a product manager is very true. Total responsibility, zero power,
100%.
Zero authority. Like, hey, you own this, but by the way, you have no authority. Good luck.
Right. You only own the failure. You actually don't actually own the success, because if it was successful, it's because I gave you the okay.
It's so accurate. It hurts my soul.
Oh my God, it's horrible.
The good news is this, that you have one point of focus. It's good that way, right? It's like,
yes.
I have this product. I hold it tightly.
Whole world, right?
All I do. And then you learn how to do internal PR, lobby, I remember when we were launching Clean Sweep 95, it was supposed to be part of Windows 95, but it was by now already September. Windows 95 had launched August 15th. And we were like, yeah, it's an add-on program for Windows 95. Meanwhile, we're September and haven't even launched yet. So I go up to QA and I go, I'm going to launch a product that's not fully QA'd. And I got them to agree to do all the tech support calls that would come. And we made it, thank God. And another huge secret about this product, which ended up selling $1 million a month, which wasn't bad for a small utility program. Yeah. And the big secret was the entire programming staff was one guy.
Wow.
When you have one coder, life is very simple. There is, if inefficiency in programming decreases dramatically each time you add another person.
Right.
You got one coder, right. As long as, he can visualize the entire world of it. And we would have these secret meetings offsite because, okay, where's the CD? It was wild. But anyway, I had a big learning experience there. And, it really is true that if you learn to do something well, A, you'll do well at it, but also B, you'll enjoy it more, right?
Yep.
You'll enjoy doing it. All right. So with that, enough of this old timer talk. We have the freewheeling discussion here with the OriginClear managers, and Tom, who's actually one of them. Tom is, he's at our Charlotte outpost, and because we have outposts everywhere apparently. And why did you move to Charlotte, Tom?
It was just simple quality of life, honestly. My daughter started kindergarten this month, so that was like a big piece. Little 5-year-old, and my wife and I were trying to really find that quintessential family location where a little child can grow up with lots of friends and a good quality of life with some of the, I guess the upbringing that we had as kids. And we found it here. It's an amazing community of people. It's a really nice business city with a lot of professional people. And the weather's very favorable. So it's a very pretty spot.
Nice restaurants downtown too.
Yeah, downtown's pretty cool. It's about 17 miles south of where I live. So we don't really get down there too much, obviously. So we stay in our little bubble, suburbia space. But they have some nice stuff up here as well.
So the kingdom we have right now is in Sherman, Texas, and also in the Roanoke Valley up by Virginia Tech. That's where Dan Early is with his team. And then we've got this cool distributed manufacturing model where we have assembly happening at all the rotomolding locations. So, and one of the things that you're working with me on is to implement this cool system that one of our people over at MWS, John Vines, came from another water company. He brought this SharePoint-based system that in real time ties into the accounting, ties into the booking systems and so forth, and it creates this continuous process. And I think you're now busy implementing it over at PWT. Am I right?
Yeah, we've always had QuickBooks and financial management at PwC, but John brings a different level with the SharePoint concept, where it's a little bit more of a real time connectivity to our QuickBooks feeds, plus what I have on the other side with our sales feeds. So when the team on project management has direct inputs of what we're selling and milestoning, combined with what the finance department has for billing and invoicing, and then it consolidates into the SharePoint piece and then lines up the recognized revenue of here's what we made, plus the forecasted revenue of what we project is going to be the next sequence of money coming in from the accounts receivable. And it gives us a little bit better fidelity on, where we are financially, plus where we think we're headed. So it's a good benchmark for a dashboard.
Yeah, in fact, it won't hurt to show as a sample what this thing looks like, here we go. We're in full screen mode. I'm coming back here. 1 second. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and share as a sample for modular water. This is what John Vines built for modular water. And you can see these are the jobs that were sold this year and all of the coming milestones, the percentages of completion that are going to build off of that. Now, here's what's going on. Modular Water had a slow start to the year, but if we put in the 0.9s, the deals that he is busy closing right now, along with the 100, now we get a $3 million year, and that's without looking at the 85% and 80%. So now it starts to be serious because he's been coming out of the 2 million. His big year was in 2022 when he did $2 million. So now we're looking at breaking past that. Now I want to disclaim this dashboard. This is an actual dashboard taken from John Vines' SharePoint system, but there can always be errors, and of course some of this stuff might not come through. But 0.9 is pretty good. Now if we start adding 0.85 and 0.8. Now we start to get a pretty good number, 5.3. But the problem is, of course, we're now coming up on Q4. So my tendency is to, and for recognized revenue, you got to look at not just making the sale, but getting money in and shipping stuff out, or doing diagrams or whatever the milestone is. So you got to bear that in. Which is why you have to pretty much discount the lesser percentages. And I think this gives a pretty good snapshot of where MWS is going to end up for the year. So this is what we're combining, implementing over at PWT, and then we'll have a consolidation, and that is going to be a dream come true.
Right. Yeah. I mean, PWT's, obviously makes more money than MWS does historically, and our projects tend to be a little bit larger. Like we just closed a multi-million-dollar, power plant. The contract just came in 2 days ago, as a matter of fact.
And that's a booked sale, not recognized revenue. But the good news is, I hear that 70% of the revenue will come in 2024.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. Where normally it's a longer term project. However, because they want to use it or lose it, because it's a municipal project, they are going to spend through a lot of that capital to us in the year 2024.
You told them no, right? You told them
we don't want the money. You told them no.
You told them he needed more time, right?
Right.
No. But the truth is, it's awesome. It's a great situation for us, and it'll really be applied properly, because now we can move our way all the way through the engineering phase and the submittal phases into the ordering of parts, and then start staging the project quicker. So it'll actually speed up the total life cycle of the project, which also lets us complete milestones better as well. So it's a win in a lot of ways for us.
Well, the problem, as we know, for these big deals is cash flow. We had the big year 2022, which was the most important thing that you and PWT and MWS could have done for us, was deliver a big year. And that was really to your credit, a $10 million year, because that enabled us to apply a conservative valuation of 3.2x multiple and achieve a multiple that would work for the acquisition by the special purpose blank check company. Okay, great. The problem is, of course, it creates these vast cash flow issues, because PWT, they eat what they kill. And so there's that. And then secondly is, you're so busy trying to digest it in 2023 that it was really a marvel that we stayed on trend. We fell back a bit, but we stayed on trend. And it looks pretty good to continue to remain on trend in 2024, to show that 2022 wasn't just a lucky break.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't luck. It was actually pretty normal business as it came through. And actually, the truth is, as I look at our book of business and pipeline this year and even beyond, we have a tremendous opportunity to do very large numbers with similar clients. Now, you have to caveat that based on the business of where we are as a right sizing topic, right? How big are we right this minute? What can we totally handle? And how many men do we need to have in place to handle the work? Then you combine that with how much equipment do I have to have, right? Because you got to buy a lot of parts. And so as you work your way up this channel to getting a little bigger and trying to do more work, you do have to spend a lot on the parts in some of those early waves of those projects. And then you have to balance out collecting your revenue for your milestone payments with, paying your vendors, supply chain. And so that's really where the magic is sitting in the challenge on a daily basis, right? Because it's kind of balancing those two things out. And depending on how the market's giving you feedback, sometimes we go through these times where availability of parts are hard, or the supply chain is not as friendly to giving you parts at a good price. And so, I hate to say I don't want to get politics in the way, but when you're entering into a political year with an election like we are right now, everybody gets really tight. And so all of a sudden it's like, ooh, we don't want to give you terms on buying that equipment, but yet I have a $50,000 thing I need to buy right now this week. And I've got a guy on the other end of the phone going, but I don't want to give you 30 days net. Why don't you just pay for it all up front? I'm like, I'm not a bank guy. I'm a business, so you know how this works. This is our normal cycle time. It's interesting just kind of working through those issues, in the market. But you alluded to it before, we're in an industry who's traditionally done business a certain way. And, you're here trying to disrupt it a bit and saying, hey, there's other ways to do business. And, the irony of it is, it's not that the work's not there. The work is totally out there for us. It's amazing how much work is out there for us. It's an issue of if the financing can arrive at the right time to allow the work to flow better. Right. And I think that's really where the challenge sits.
We might have an easy button for that.
Talk to me. Tell me.
We're working on an easy button. I was curious. You would think that in a political environment like we are in, some guys may not know what their financial picture is going to be next year, and that actually might accelerate deals. So it could have the opposite effect. Have you experienced any of that? I mean, I know you just dealt with this one. Yeah, you dealt with this one. They were like, look, and I think that's probably because they were going to lose funding if they didn't apply the funding, right?
Sometimes, they have budgetary requirements. In other situations, like on some of the real estate developer guys, they are like more about, hey, we're going to light this up. Interest rates are on the move now. So they felt confident. So they just underwrote their big project where they bought the land and so forth. So now they're going to go purchase the wastewater treat system, right? So that's done. They made their choice. And so you're seeing them make a commitment. And I think that's a little bit of what you see on that side. I think it's just an issue of where you're sitting in that ecosystem.
Gotcha.
So, in fact, what I thought I would do, while we're busy throwing up charts and stuff like that, is to pull up here. A second, let me just close this out. This is going to be not properly fitted, so apologies ahead of time. But this is a graph that shows exactly what we've been talking about, which is I don't want to do that. That's bad boy. So here, for example, this graph right here, this one, shows that for years, PWT and MWS were stuck in this $1 million a quarter mode. And here it breaks it out by division. And starting in 2018, we started seeing the orange bar come up, and that was MWS, but very small. Even in 2021, it was only less than $500,000. But then MWS jumped, PWT jumped, and all of a sudden we had the $10 million a year. Then we had to absorb the sales and still remain on trend. And we did. We were at 6.6, which is 50% above where we had been before. So we never saw that again. And PWT doing 5 mil and NWS doing 1.6. Now we have 2024, and you notice how 1.8 is the forecast. Well, you saw how in the opportunities spreadsheet, they're well beyond that already, even with the deals that are closed. So this is this shows that
Very modest.
this is a conservative graph, but it shows us steadily improving, and we don't really break past that 10 million until 2025 is almost over. I believe we'll do better than that by far, and of course we have acquisitions to talk about, but here it is bigger, and it shows the historical as well. There we go.
It's a good looking graph.
It's not a bad looking graph. Not a bad.
Yeah, he wouldn't mind skiing on that.
No,
it's not really black diamond, is it?
That's a green trail.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's like blue. That's like blue.
You guys are great. Anyway, so really I was with a fantastic gentleman who I'm going to be very happy to announce will be an advisor to the company. I'm just going to tease it now, but top exec, world class. And I was with him today, 2.5 hour drive each way. But at least I didn't have to fly. That's good news. And I told him, look, water on demand is great, but it's a new business for us. That's why on this graph, the gray, which is water on demand, it just grows gradual. It's in 2024, there's nothing, it's 45K, but then it only gets to 2 million in 2026. And I'm doing this on purpose. Why? Because it's a new business for us. So what our existing business is design and build. Imagine this is the analogy that I used with him. We are right now like the real estate developer that builds a condo and then sells all the units, done, walks away. But what if you're a developer who develops for rentals? So now he built it and he continues to get rental income. He didn't sell the units, he puts them out for rental. I have a friend doing that right now in Clearwater. So that is the model. It's a different model. You got to learn not just how to build and develop things, but how to manage them
and maintain them, right?
And collect and make sure you don't have bad, tenants.
You have to have retention. You have to have. It's a different so. The good news is you got the sale. The bad news is you got the sale, but it's also the good news because you're out of business again. But you no longer have to worry about that creation. This model infinitely more profitable, but with profitability comes complexity, right? There's complexities. Now, these complexities have been these are well-worn paths. Other businesses that are very, very, very similar to what we're doing already have well-worn methodology that we can adopt, the majority of. So we won't have to reinvent this. It's really just an adaptation of other long-standing, well-working models. So that's the good news, right? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if we said it's going to be an Airbnb for water, people would go, what?
Right. Well, and the interesting thing is, so I actually had the opportunity to go on site. There was a local install of a modular water system pump station this week, near about an hour outside of Pittsburgh. And I got to go and I took pictures and video. You guys will definitely see that. Make sure you're following on socials. You'll end up seeing all that footage, I promise you. But the really interesting thing for me is not just seeing the equipment go into the ground, because that is an awesome process. Got a big old crane, got everything lifting out there. It's fun. A hole 27 feet deep. I'm looking down there going, I'm not afraid of heights, but I'm getting some vertigo looking down this hole here. But what was interesting to me was listening to the municipal director and listening to basically the job foreman talk about how much they like the systems, but also the challenges that they have just in general with contracts. And there was a horror story that the municipal director told me. Basically said they were dealing with a pump station a couple of years ago, and the LCD screen went out on the unit. And so they had no idea how to replace this unit. And they called the company and said, hey, can you guys please come out and fix this unit? A year before they sent someone out to take pictures of it. And he got so fed up that he went and bought a new screen, looked it up, bought his own cable, and tried to fix it himself, and then ended up needing to get more help anyway because it was such a bad deal. And so when you talk about the importance of having the monitoring in place like we do, having the maintenance contracts set up like we do, and all of those things end to end, it was shocking and appalling to me just how much a competitive advantage you have in this industry by just being on top of
showing up.
No, legitimate.
Yes.
Just.
So you're talking about such a great core topic, AJ, because like this is actually something that Riggs and I and everybody have talked about a long time, which is like what's really happening in the markets out here and how big is this market, right? Because that's really a lot of what this becomes. You're describing, sort of this theme that's happening everywhere, which is there's all these old systems out there. They've been around for a long time. There's a lot of old people out there, and there's not enough people to service all this stuff anymore. And the growing need for this infrastructure fix is so massive, right? And it's just mind-numbing, like how many sites there need to be worked on in the water industry. Plus, there's tons of money sloshing around that's supposed to go to this, and yet it has the hardest time reaching the end market, which is kind of insane too, which is unbelievable.
There's that famous the broadband project, $44 billion and not one broadband connection to the day.
Right.
And we're not going to get personalities here because we don't want to go down that rabbit hole, Ken. But the truth is, this is true of many government projects. They are white elephants, and they're there primarily to keep the bureaucrats' jobs going, right? So the real purpose is not to get the thing done. The real purpose is keep the bureaucrat going all the way to retirement. But coming back to our business plan, basically, we know we do design and build well. We design it, we build it. It's not that recurring revenue model we want, but it works. Yep. And PWT has its specialty, MWS has a specialty, and they're growing businesses, and they're doing fine. And now we do acquisitions of the same stuff, and we're simply building a model that we know already. And that to me is very good because everybody's familiar with it. Everybody knows how to do it. Meanwhile, over in the Skunk Works, we got the Water on Demand project, for which Dan Early has recruited a couple clients, and he was getting more. And I was like, please, Dan, stop. Because the minute you tell people
it's free.
Yeah. They're like, oh, okay, I'll take it. So
yeah, I can't understand why they would be blowing them up like that, right?
So I said, Dan, please stop. He goes, whoa, what's going on? I was like, we haven't done our first showcase. Right. Let's get the first one done. Right. So I'm a big believer in piloting and showcasing. As Elon Musk says, it's very easy to write a PowerPoint. It's harder to build a car. And so in this case, we've done a tremendous amount of design and modeling and financial work around Water on Demand. But now we got to implement the model, and we've got the sites and we're setting them up. But meanwhile, we want to get the conventional revenues going because we know how. I guess that's what I'm saying.
And I guess my tie-in to all of this stuff is it feels good whenever I can be out on a job site and there's just inherent, it's easy to be proud of what we do because we do things the right way, right? There's great leadership on the system side that understands these problems and understands, and again, I don't say this to be cruel, but it's very low-hanging fruit in this industry to be excellent. You just need to put together a good system. These guys don't even expect it to be bulletproof. They're like, look, we know we're going to have to fix it. Make it easy to fix. Make it easy to understand when it's broken and have a plan to fix it when it does break. And we're happy. And the fact that so many people don't have that, it is mind-blowing. So again, it just goes back to, for me, the fact that, yes, this might be a new industry for us in terms of this new model, but we're already putting in place because the core fundamentals are so good. And I want to make sure that the average people that don't get the chance to go and talk to these guys know that look, there's a vast amount of kind of, piecemeal stuff that happens in this industry where it's like, oh, well, this guy digs the hole and then this guy pours the concrete and then this guy does the pumps and then this guy does the wet well. And it's all these individual things. So beyond the model of the water on demand, we're already doing the fundamentals so much better than most other companies out there that it's not even funny, which is why you're seeing that wonderful steady increase as more and more people find out that we are a product. It is only going to continue to increase the demand in the things that we do, both at PWT and MWS, because we just do it well. And that's a true testament to all the work that they've been doing.
And going back to the original analogy I was using, if you're going to be a developer who's going to get in the rental business, first develop well.
Yep.
Right.
Have that down so that
Build a good building. Right.
Right. It doesn't have mold issues and blah, blah, blah. It's not going to fall over in a hurricane. And now you can do the service model and the recurring revenue model on top of a solid build. And I think that's really what we've mastered.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're at 9:05. It's roughly an hour. Here is the masterclass with Ken Berenger, who is going to answer more questions. It's been wonderful having you, Tom, for this brief moment. And keep your daughter having fun in kindergarten. That's so cute.
Thanks.
So enjoy the fall, and we'll have the big launch in Sherman. Anybody who is interested in showing up in Sherman should go to the. Should we have them email water@originclear.com? Does that work?
Mm-hmm. That works.
Good. Water@originclear.com.
There are a couple of people in particular who live nearby, as I mentioned to you, Riggs, that really would be excited to show up, and they're huge supporters. So it'd be wonderful.
Yeah, but they're Texans.
They're Texans.
I'm sorry. I'm not joking. I'm giving you.
No, they're
giving me a hard time.
Canadian. I think they're actually originally Canadians who live in Texas now. So,
okay. Anyway, so we'll get their names. It's going to be very informal, so people can just show up.
Okay.
2 to 4 p.m. on October 8th. There's no formal invitation list. We're not worried about a shooter in the bushes, so it's all good.
You don't have a guy with a tuxedo and a velvet rope?
Oh,
no,
my gosh.
not even. This is not the 80s. Okay. All right, guys, it's been great. Thank you very much. AJ, thank you for
good night, guys.
For being the TD, technical director.
You're welcome.
Be well, everybody.
I was watching you like checking screens here, there, screen. We gotta do the things. No, please, guys, make sure you're following on socials. And again, if you do want to talk to Ken, the easiest way is actually just click right below this live stream to view the investor presentation. You don't even have to wait. You can just view the presentation, then book a call. You'll be informed. It's a fantastic system. Do it. Yeah, baby.
We want feedback on the system. So yeah, do it.
We will see you again in October. And it's the 17th of October. Thursday, the 17th of October is the next Legends of Water. And I think I'm going to have somebody really, really cool. You're going to love it. Not that, Tom, you weren't cool. I'm not saying that. Okay.
I'm really cool. I'm sorry. I might claim it. I got so much more to share. But we'll have to do another follow-up.
Who's also cool.
We could do Roman numeral 2, Legends of Water, Tom Marchesello, Roman numeral 2, the follow-up.
Yes.
If you want to know how big the water industry is and how big we could really be, I think I have an answer for you. I'll give it to you next time.
There's a whole discussion we can have
about. How do you keep a guy in suspense? I'll tell you later.
No, but seriously, there's a discussion about the grants that you've been researching and so forth. So we reserve that discussion. Thank you. We're out of time. So
okay, get the hook.
Here comes the
hook.
The hook.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.